I want to bring in Democratic Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren of California, among 32 congressional Democrats now calling for President Biden to exit the race. I really appreciate you coming on the program. I know that you made this decision public just a very short time ago. Why come out publicly now?
Well, I think from the data, it's pretty clear, as I said in the letter, that the president is on a trajectory to not prevailing in the election. And I think it's telling that members of the January 6th committee, myself, Adam Schiff, Jamie Raskin, have all suggested that he step aside and that we get another candidate who can beat Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a threat to America and the world. He cannot be elected. He must not be elected. And so we've asked the president to look at that. Obviously, this is his decision, but it's not about him and it's not about me. It's about America.
Did Nancy Pelosi play a role in you voicing this opinion? What are your conversations like?
Well, I never discuss my conversations with Nancy, but this came from me, not from her or from anyone else.
So when people try to connect your close relationship with her to the move we saw, well, of course, first from Adam Schiff and now you're saying this is not something that's orchestrated behind the scenes.
That is correct. I mean, she is someone I've known for many years, and she is highly respected in the Congress, but she is not directing anyone to do anything. Obviously, I try and give her and other leaders a heads up if I'm going to do something, but no, this is from me.
NBC News is reporting, Congresswoman, that Joe Biden feels angry. He feels hurt that top Democrats have called on him to exit the race. If he is going to stay in, as he has said repeatedly, as his campaign manager said just this morning on this MSNBC on Morning Joe, is there a danger in allowing the calls for him to step aside to continue? In your mind, is there a time when it just has to stop, one way or another?
Well, yeah. Clearly, I mean, we are coming up to our convention. We're coming up to deadlines. We need a decision. As I mentioned in my letter to him, if he ends up being the Democratic nominee, I'll do everything I can to try and get him elected. I just fear that those efforts may fall short, and that will result in really dreadful outcomes for the American people.
I just spoke to your colleague, Jerry Connolly, and he told me he would not join the chorus of Democrats who are calling for Joe Biden to drop out because he wants to allow him to preserve his dignity. And first of all, what do you say to that? But also to the idea that it's not just hurting Biden personally, it's hurting his chances if he stays in, and it is hurting Democrats overall, this chaos, this disunity.
Well, this is not chaos, and I certainly respect Jerry is a good guy, and each one of us has to make a decision on what to say and how to say it. But my concern is defeating Donald Trump. He cannot be the next president. And I have concern that Mr. Biden will fall short. I know that he wants to beat Donald Trump. The problem is all the data is pointing in the other direction. I hope he makes the best decision he can for the future of our country. This is not, as I mentioned in my letter, I am a big fan of what President Biden has accomplished. I respect his lifetime of public service. He's inspired people around the country and around the world. This isn't about him. This is about America's future.
Let me ask you finally that what happens next then? What if Joe Biden does decide to step aside? Would you like to see Kamala Harris at the top of the ticket? Do you believe the best way forward is what some people have called a mini primary? What happens next and how quickly could it happen?
Well, I think should he make that decision, there will have to be quick steps. I don't think we can do a coronation, but obviously the vice president would be the leading candidate. I think kind of a mini primary, maybe a vetting hosted by former presidents, including Obama and Clinton, would be helpful and help focus the attention. And whoever emerges, including Kamala Harris, would be a stronger candidate than if we tried to exclude a transparent public process.
There are a lot of people who suggested that the floodgates were going to open now, and we certainly have seen a lot of people doing what you're doing now. Do you expect even more members coming across the weekend to add to the 32 congressional Democrats who have already called for Joe Biden to step down?
I think there will be additional members in the coming days.
Hey there, MSNBC fans. I'm Luke Russert, and be sure to join me, Rachel Maddow, Jen Psaki, Lawrence O'Donnell, Steve Kornacki, Joy Reid, and many more September 7th in Brooklyn, MSNBC Live Democracy 2024. Click on the link for ticket information. We will see you there.